It's okay, Arnold. There aren't any girls in here.
Hi!
Your 30 seconds are up, Leo. I'm sitting down.
Joe!
You're making this up. No, he's not.
Did you really know all the weird facts about the facts of life? Or are there still surprises you never heard? For families in 1979, this sitcom's facts shaped how we laughed, learned, and even argued around the TV each week. But what truths were hidden behind that laughter, and why do they still matter now? The facts of life might never have existed if not for a clever bit of television recycling. It all started with Different Strokes, the popular show that introduced us to Arnold and Willis. The producers realized that Mrs. Garrett, the housekeeper played by Charlotte Rae, had real potential as a central figure rather than just a background character. To test it out, they created a backdoor pilot episode where Mrs. Garrett leaves the Drummond household to work at an all-girls school. That single experiment ended up becoming the seed for the facts of life. Imagine if that episode had never aired. There would be no Blair, no Tootie, no Joe, and no theme song burned into everyone's memory. Spin-offs were common in television, but few felt as natural as this one. The character already had a loyal following, so the risk was lower than starting from scratch. Still, it was a gamble to center an entire show on a supporting role. When the new series debuted in 1979, some critics doubted it would hold an audience's attention. Yet within a year, the spin-off had outlived predictions and become one of NBC's longest-running sitcoms. That one little side story from Different Strokes was the quiet spark that lit a television classic. The first season of The Facts of Life was almost unrecognizable compared to what the show became later. When it aired in 1979, producers packed the Eastland School with 7 different girls alongside Mrs. Garrett. It sounded great on paper. More personalities, more storylines, more potential laughs. But in practice, it was a little overwhelming. The cast felt crowded, with multiple characters struggling to stand out. Some girls were funny, some were shy, and some were barely given lines at all. The writers tried to balance everyone's quirks, but audiences had a hard time keeping track of so many new faces at once. Imagine flipping on the television and seeing 7 different students all competing for attention in a 22-minute sitcom. It did not take long for the producers to realize that fewer characters with stronger personalities would work better than a large ensemble. Still, those first few episodes are a fascinating time capsule. You can spot the original mix of students and wonder what might have happened if the producers had decided to keep them all. In a way, the overstuffed first season makes the later changes feel even more dramatic. The show found its rhythm once it trimmed down, but it is worth remembering just how chaotic the beginning really was. By the time Season 2 rolled around, the producers had made a tough decision. Most of the original girls had to go. Out of the 7 girls who debuted in 1979, only a handful survived into the second season. Fans sometimes call it the dorm cleanout, because it really did feel like half the cast suddenly vanished. The reasoning was simple. Too many characters meant too many thin storylines. Instead of investing in everyone, the writers decided to focus on the few girls who resonated most with viewers. For the unlucky cast members, it was a harsh lesson about the realities of television. Imagine being told after one season that your character just was not working out. Yet the gamble paid off. The slimmed-down cast allowed Blair, Natalie, and Tootie to shine in ways they never could before. The show went from being a busy dorm comedy to a tighter, more character-driven story. Some fans still remember the original faces and wonder how they would have evolved if given the chance. But in television, tough cuts often keep a series alive. For The Facts of Life, it was exactly the right move at the right time. One of the most surprising names hidden in the early episodes of The Facts of Life is Molly Ringwald. Long before she became famous for 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, she was just another student at Eastland Academy. In Season 1, Ringwald played a bubbly, red-headed girl named Molly, who was part of the larger cast. She had a few lines here and there, but like several of the other students, she never really broke through as a standout character. When the producers trimmed the cast for Season 2, she was among those written out. For Ringwald, it was probably a disappointment at the time, but in hindsight, it worked out just fine. Being cut from The Facts of Life cleared the way for her breakout roles in the 1980s teen movie boom. Still, it is funny to look back and realize that one of the most iconic teen actresses of the decade once walked the halls of Eastland. Today, fans rewatching the first season often get a shock when they suddenly spot a young Molly Ringwald in the background. She may not have lasted long on the show, but she is forever part of its history. Season 2 also introduced one of the most important characters in the entire series, Joe Polniacek. Played by Nancy McKeon, Joe was the tough-talking, motorcycle-riding tomboy who immediately shook things up. Her arrival was not just about adding a new student, it was about giving the show an edge. Up to that point, The Facts of Life had been full of sweet, privileged girls who often felt more like caricatures than real teenagers. Joe's character brought grit and grounded conflict. She challenged Blair's snobbery, called out nonsense when she saw it, and gave the show a spark of energy it had been missing. Audiences loved the dynamic between Joe and Blair, and the chemistry became the backbone of the series for years. Behind the scenes, Nancy McKeon reportedly won the role after impressing producers with her no-nonsense attitude in auditions. It is safe to say she saved the show from cancellation at a critical moment. Without Joe, The Facts of Life might have disappeared after its rocky first season. Instead, it grew stronger, funnier, and more relatable, thanks to one Bronx-born troublemaker who stole the spotlight. Another surprising name tied to The Facts of Life is George Clooney. Long before he became a Hollywood superstar, Clooney took a job as a handyman on the show in the mid-1980s. His character, George Burnett, was hired to help the girls with repairs at Edna's Edibles, the gourmet food shop where the cast worked after leaving Eastland Academy. Clooney's presence gave the show a bit of fresh energy, though his role was never meant to be huge. Still, fans who watched at the time remember him fondly as the young, shaggy-haired helper who always seemed just a little too charming for his own good. Clooney has since joked about his early sitcom work, but The Facts of Life was one of the stepping stones that helped him climb toward stardom. Looking back, it is almost surreal to see one of the world's most famous actors fixing shelves and cracking jokes in a small supporting role. For The Facts of Life, his addition was another reminder of how often the show managed to attract talent before they became household names. If nothing else, George Clooney's time at Eastland is a fun piece of trivia that fans love to bring up. The entire reason The Facts of Life existed at all was because of Charlotte Rae. She had already won over audiences as Mrs. Garrett on Different Strokes, but Rae herself felt the character was being underused. She approached producers and suggested giving Mrs. Garrett her own storyline and more screen time. That bold request turned into the spin-off that became The Facts of Life. It is rare for an actor to ask for a spin-off and actually get it, but Rae's instincts proved correct. Mrs. Garrett was the heart and soul of the new show, offering guidance, warmth, and a steady presence to balance the chaos of the students. Without her, the series would have had no anchor. Rae's decision also highlights just how much creative influence an actor can have when they truly believe in a character. Over the years, she became synonymous with Mrs. Garrett, a role that fans still celebrate decades later. The show may have gone on to focus more on the girls, but it was Charlotte Rae's initiative that set everything in motion. Without her push, the series may never have existed at all. It is hard to imagine anyone other than Lisa Whelchel playing Blair Warner, the wealthy, stylish student who became one of the show's most iconic characters. But early on, producers actually considered recasting her. During test shoots, some executives felt Whelchel's delivery came across as too sharp and unlikable. They worried audiences would not connect with her, or worse, that she would overshadow the other girls in a negative way. Fortunately, they stuck with her, and Whelchel grew into the role perfectly. Blair's mix of vanity, wit, and occasional vulnerability made her endlessly watchable. She became the perfect foil to Joe, and together, the two characters drove much of the show's humor and drama. Looking back, it is wild to think how close the show came to losing one of its central figures before it even began. Whelchel's portrayal became so iconic that fans still quote her lines and remember her as one of television's best rich girl characters. Sometimes the traits producers fear most turn out to be the ones that make a character unforgettable. Blair Warner is proof of that. If there is one thing every fan of The Facts of Life remembers, it is the theme song. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. Those words became one of the most recognizable openings in television. But what many people do not know is that the theme song was re-recorded several times throughout the show's run. Each version had slight differences, from tempo changes to new vocal performances, reflecting the evolving tone of the series. In its earliest form, the song had a softer, almost folksy vibe. Later seasons featured a more polished, upbeat version that matched the growing confidence of the show itself. Theme songs often become part of a show's identity, and this one was no exception. Fans could sing it word for word, and even today, a few notes are enough to transport viewers back to the 1980s. The multiple recordings show just how carefully producers managed the show's image over time. No matter which version you grew up with, the theme song remains a core part of why The Facts of Life feels so memorable. One of the biggest changes in the series came when the setting shifted from the dorms of Eastland Academy to the cafeteria. After the first season, the producers realized the dorm setup limited story possibilities. By moving the action to the school cafeteria, they gave the girls a central hangout spot where more natural interactions could happen. The cafeteria also allowed for a revolving door of side characters, teachers, and even parents, all of whom could pop in and out of storylines more easily. It was a simple change, but an effective one. Audiences quickly adjusted to seeing Mrs. Garrett as a dietitian supervising the cafeteria instead of a dorm house mother. The new environment created more opportunities for comedy, conflict, and life lessons. It also symbolized the tighter focus on a smaller cast with fewer distractions from side characters. In many ways, the cafeteria became as iconic to The Facts of Life as Central Perk was to Friends years later. It was the hub where stories were told, secrets were spilled, and friendships deepened. Without it, the show might never have found its groove. When people think of The Facts of Life, they often remember the laughs, the friendships, and the lighthearted moments. But the show was also known for something much heavier: its controversial, very special episodes. Like many sitcoms of the 1980s, it sometimes took a break from comedy to tackle serious social issues. Were one of the most shocking topics the show confronted. In one memorable episode, the girls encountered peers experimenting with illegal substances, and the script did not shy away from the dangers. For audiences used to wholesome teenage hijinks, it was a jarring turn. Yet these episodes were important because they showed that sitcoms could address real-world problems instead of pretending they did not exist. Parents and critics often debated whether such heavy themes belonged in a comedy, but the show's creators argued that teenagers watching at home deserved honesty. These episodes gave The Facts of Life a kind of moral backbone, even if not everyone agreed with the approach. They also helped the show stand out in a crowded television landscape, proving it could balance laughter with lessons. It is easy to forget now, but those very special episodes were bold risks for their time. One storyline that truly pushed boundaries was Natalie's decision to lose her virginity. This episode was groundbreaking because it was one of the first American sitcoms to address teen sexual maturity directly. In the early 1980s, this kind of topic was considered off-limits for family television, but The Facts of Life dared to explore it with sensitivity and honesty. Natalie, played by Mindy Cohn, was portrayed as thoughtful and responsible, making a choice that reflected her growth as a young adult. The episode avoided cheap jokes or shock value and instead treated the subject as a serious milestone in her life. Critics praised the show for handling the storyline with maturity, while some parents worried it was too much for young viewers. Either way, it sparked conversations in living rooms across America. For many fans, it was a defining moment that showed the series was not afraid to grow up alongside its characters. The bravery of that episode paved the way for other shows to tackle sensitive themes in the years that followed. Even today, it is remembered as one of the boldest moments in sitcom history. Most sitcoms of the era were filmed in front of a live studio audience, giving viewers at home that classic laugh track energy. But the facts of life did not always follow that formula. While many episodes were taped with an audience, others were filmed without one, creating a different tone entirely. Episodes without the live laughter often felt more intimate, allowing the performances to breathe without the timing pressure of waiting for laughs. This was especially useful when the show dealt with serious storylines where canned laughter would have felt jarring or inappropriate. The decision also highlighted how versatile the series was, able to shift between comedy and drama depending on the needs of the story. Fans could sometimes sense the difference in energy. Episodes without an audience felt quieter, heavier, and more like a drama than a sitcom. It was an unusual choice for the time, since networks worried about losing the comforting rhythm of audience laughter. But for the facts of life, the experiment paid off by giving it a distinctive style. It proved that even in the middle of America's laugh track era, a sitcom could break the rules and still succeed. Despite shaky beginnings and low ratings in its first year, The Facts of Life went on to become one of NBC's longest-running sitcoms of the 1980s. It lasted 9 full seasons, a rare achievement for a show that started with such uncertainty. Most series that stumble in the first season are quickly canceled, but The Facts of Life defied the odds. Through cast changes, format shifts, and a constant balancing act between comedy and drama, the show slowly built a loyal fan base. Viewers connected with the characters as they grew from schoolgirls into young women, facing relatable challenges along the way. By the time it wrapped in 1988, it had aired over 200 episodes, cementing its place in television history. For NBC, the show became a steady performer during a decade of fierce competition. The long run also proved that sitcoms centered on female friendships could thrive, paving the way for future series with similar themes. Looking back, 9 seasons is a testament to how much the show resonated, despite its rocky start. It was a quiet triumph for a show that was never supposed to last. One of the most shocking moments in the show's history came when Charlotte Rae, the beloved actress behind Mrs. Garrett, decided to leave mid-run. Rae had been the heart and soul of the series since its beginning, offering wisdom and warmth to the girls. Her departure left fans stunned and worried about whether the show could survive without her. To fill the void, producers brought in Cloris Leachman as Beverly Ann, Mrs. Garrett's sister. Leachman was a respected actress with an Academy Award to her name, and she brought her own style of humor and guidance to the role. Still, for many fans, it was never quite the same without Rae. The transition symbolized how much the show had changed since its early days. While Leachman eventually settled into the part, the loss of Charlotte Rae marked the end of an era. Her presence had anchored the series, and even though the show continued, it always carried the shadow of her departure. It was a reminder that television is as much about the actors as the characters they play. Behind the scenes, the friendships among the cast members were very real. Lisa Whelchel, Mindy Cohn, Kim Fields, and Nancy McKeon often described the set as feeling like a second family. Growing up together on camera created bonds that lasted long after the show ended. They celebrated birthdays, supported each other through personal struggles, and leaned on one another during long shooting days. Unlike some casts where rivalries and drama dominate, the Facts of Life cast seemed to genuinely care for each other. This real-life closeness showed up on screen, where their chemistry felt authentic and unforced. Fans could sense that the friendships they were watching were rooted in something real. Decades later, the actresses have spoken fondly about their time together, calling it one of the most important experiences of their lives. The genuine bond between the girls was one of the secret ingredients that kept the show so enduring. It was not just acting, it was friendship captured on film. If you watch the series closely, you will notice that the sets never stayed exactly the same for long. The Eastland School interiors, in particular, were remodeled multiple times over the years. Part of this was due to budget changes, and part of it was about keeping the visuals fresh. Audiences might not consciously notice every detail, but new backdrops and furniture gave the show a sense of progression. The dorms looked different after the first season, the cafeteria shifted layouts, and later, Edna's Edibles introduced an entirely new setting. Each change reflected where the show was headed narratively and stylistically. In some cases, the adjustments were practical, making filming easier for the crew. In others, they were designed to match the more mature tone of the series as the girls grew older. The shifting sets serve as a reminder that television is always evolving, even behind the scenes. What stayed constant was the heart of the show, the relationships, but the surroundings helped tell the story of change. It is another small but fascinating detail about how carefully the show was managed over its 9-year run. At one point during production, disaster struck when a fire destroyed part of the set. The accident forced the crew to rebuild quickly in order to keep the show on schedule. While no one was hurt, the incident caused chaos behind the scenes. Rebuilding sets is expensive and time-consuming, but the show's popularity meant NBC was willing to foot the bill. Fans watching at home probably had no idea anything had gone wrong, but for the cast and crew, it was a stressful period. The fire also highlighted just how fragile television production can be. Months of work can vanish overnight in a single accident. Despite the setback, the team pulled together and got the show back on track. In some ways, the quick recovery demonstrated the resilience of everyone involved. For a series that already had its share of challenges, the fire was just another obstacle to overcome. The fact that viewers never noticed a gap is a credit to how smoothly the crew handled the crisis. The Facts of Life may seem like it was always destined for success, but the truth is, the network nearly canceled it twice. In its first season, the crowded cast and uneven storylines left ratings unimpressive. Executives debated pulling the plug, but instead chose to retool the show by cutting characters and focusing on a smaller core group. That decision saved the series. Later, in the middle of its run, ratings dipped again, and once more, cancellation loomed. But by then, the show had developed a strong fan base, and NBC gave it another chance. Both times the gamble worked, and the show bounced back stronger. These near-death experiences are part of what makes its 9-season run so remarkable. It is easy to assume long-running series never face danger, but The Facts of Life survived by the thinnest of margins. Without those second chances, it could have been forgotten after just a year or two. Instead, it became a television staple of the 1980s. While The Facts of Life was a solid hit in America, its success overseas was even more surprising. The show found unexpected popularity in countries like France and the Philippines, where audiences connected with the themes of friendship and growing up. Cultural details may have been American, but the struggles of the characters were universal. International viewers loved seeing the girls navigate school, family, and personal challenges in ways that felt familiar despite the distance. The theme song was even translated and performed in other languages, helping the series gain traction abroad. In some regions, reruns continued long after the show ended in the United States. The global success proved that The Facts of Life was not just an American story, but a universal one. It demonstrated the power of television to cross borders and connect people with shared experiences of adolescence and growing up. For a sitcom that started as a small spin-off, becoming an international hit was one of its most unexpected achievements. In 1987, The Facts of Life decided to try something bold: send the girls overseas. The result was The Facts of Life Down Under, a made-for-television movie filmed in Australia. The idea was not only to give fans a fresh storyline, but also to test whether the show could expand its international appeal. By this point, the series had already found fans in other countries, and NBC saw an opportunity to build on that success. The movie had all the hallmarks of a classic spin-off attempt: new settings, new supporting characters, and just enough drama to keep viewers hooked. The girls found themselves involved in adventures ranging from mistaken identities to run-ins with jewel thieves, all against the backdrop of Sydney's iconic landmarks. It was lighter and more adventurous than the usual episodes, almost like a mix between a sitcom and a travel film. For the cast, it was a chance to step outside the familiar Eastland and Edna's Edibles sets and bring their characters into a global context. Fans were thrilled to see Blair, Joe, Natalie, and Tootie in such exotic situations, though critics debated whether the movie was more gimmick than substance. In the end, The Facts of Life Down Under did not launch a new series, but it did prove that the characters had worldwide appeal. It remains one of the show's most unusual chapters, remembered fondly for its charm and for showing the girls in a completely different light. Like many successful television shows of its era, The Facts of Life quickly moved beyond the screen and into the world of merchandise. In the 1980s, this was a sure sign that a program had truly broken into pop culture. Fans could find Eastland Academy lunchboxes, dolls modeled after the main characters, and even t-shirts featuring the iconic theme song lyrics. The merchandise was not as massive as what you would see from shows like The A-Team or Transformers, but it still carved out a special niche. Children carried Blair or Joe dolls to school, while teenagers proudly wore shirts that declared their love for the show. For collectors today, these items are nostalgic treasures, often fetching surprisingly high prices online. The merchandise also helped cement the idea that the show was not just entertainment, but part of everyday life. It gave fans something tangible to hold on to, a way to carry a little piece of Eastland Academy into their own routines. In a pre-digital era, when streaming and DVDs did not exist, this kind of memorabilia was often the only way to feel connected to a favorite show outside its broadcast slot. The fact that The Facts of Life inspired such products proves just how deeply it resonated with audiences. The merchandise may have been a minor fad at the time, but today, it is an important part of the show's legacy, capturing the enthusiasm of an entire generation. What set The Facts of Life apart from many other sitcoms was its willingness to address real issues faced by teenagers. Rather than sticking strictly to lighthearted comedy, the writers leaned into storylines that reflected genuine struggles of the era. Eating disorders, body image, peer pressure, shoplifting, and even racism were all subjects tackled during its 9 seasons. This approach gave the show a depth that went beyond simple jokes, allowing viewers to see themselves in the characters' challenges. Natalie's insecurities about her weight, Tootie's confrontations with racism, and Blair's privileged perspective clashing with Joe's working-class background all served as mirrors of society. For many teenagers watching at home, these episodes offered comfort by showing they were not alone. Parents often praised the show for sparking conversations around the dinner table, even if some critics felt sitcoms should not wade into serious territory. The writers struck a delicate balance, weaving life lessons into stories without turning every episode into a lecture. That balance helped explain why the series endured for so long. It was entertaining while still being meaningful. In many ways, The Facts of Life anticipated the issue-driven television that would later define shows in the 1990s and 2000s. By blending comedy with authenticity, it created a template for what a teen-focused sitcom could be. Its willingness to face uncomfortable truths remains one of its most lasting contributions to television. By the 1990s, The Facts of Life had been off the air for a few years, but its popularity had not completely faded. In fact, nostalgia for the show led to the production of reunion movies that brought the cast back together. The first was The Facts of Life Reunion, which aired in 2001, reuniting fans with Blair, Joe, Natalie, and Tootie as grown women navigating adult life. For many viewers, it was like catching up with old friends after years apart. The movie leaned heavily on nostalgia, reminding audiences of the bond that had kept the characters close through the years. Seeing the actresses reprise their roles brought back waves of memories for fans who had grown up with the show in the 1980s. Another television movie, The Facts of Life Goes to Paris, also played into the idea of expanding the girls' world beyond the walls of Eastland, though it had been produced earlier, during the original run. The 1990s and early 2000s reunion efforts underscored just how enduring the show's legacy had become. Even after its final episode, audiences still craved updates on the characters' lives. These movies proved that The Facts of Life was not just a sitcom of its time, but a story people wanted to revisit again and again. For the cast, it was also a chance to reflect on how much the show had shaped their careers and their personal identities. The reunion projects reinforced the timelessness of the show's message. Friendship endures no matter how much life changes. The series finale of The Facts of Life, which aired in 1988, took an unusual and poignant approach for a sitcom. It jumped ahead in time. Instead of ending with the girls still stuck in their familiar routines, the writers showed them stepping into adulthood. Blair considered taking over Eastland Academy, Jo planned her future career, Natalie faced big life choices, and Tootie looked ahead to opportunities beyond the safe walls of the group's world. This narrative leap was rare for sitcoms of the era, which usually ended with a simple farewell or a last round of jokes. By showing the characters moving into adulthood, the finale gave fans closure while still leaving room for imagination. Viewers could see that the girls they had watched for nearly a decade were no longer just students. They were women ready to face the real world. The episode carried a bittersweet tone, celebrating growth while acknowledging change. For audiences who had essentially grown up alongside the characters, the ending felt both personal and emotional. It was a reminder that life never stays in one place, and that saying goodbye is part of moving forward. Decades later, the finale is still remembered as one of the most heartfelt closings in sitcom history. It gave fans not just an ending, but a sense of continuation, as if the characters' stories carried on even after the cameras stopped rolling. That final jump into the future remains a powerful statement about the passage of time. And if these weird facts brought back memories or taught you something new, drop your own favorite fact of life in the comments. Give this video a like to keep the memories alive, and subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into television history.